Hey there, folks. It is a cold, windy, wet day here in Northwest Florida, and I can't work out in this thing. So what I'm going to do, just for grins and giggles, is just give a little quick tour of some of the projects I'm working on. So with that, we'll just take a little walk around, okay? Alrighty. To start with, that's my newest little buggy. A neighbor threw that out. Over $250 they paid for it Christmas time. Didn't last but a month or so. And it stopped working. I had a buddy to check it out to see if he could get it to working and perhaps give it to one of his neighbors' children or the Goodwill or something like that, but it didn't work out. So I stripped out the battery, the harness, disengaged the drive system, and put it back together and just put me a top on it. And now that's my little movable workstation. And so I'll be using that around the joint. I was going to use it as a little carry-all buggy, but I'd have to construct a dual pull system to manipulate the wheels, and it's not worth it. And I'm losing space around here with all these plants. Who put all these plants in the yard anyway? I don't know. But anyway, I collected moss a few days ago, and the weather moved in, and so it's just kind of sitting there. I've got to find me a suitable place to lay it out and to let it grow. One of my alternatives is to put it in flats and trays and just let it grow like that. What I have done is put some pieces inside of pots and plants that I've been working on, such as this little fellow. That is a former air-layered trident maple that started dying on me for whatever reason, and so that side over there to the left is still alive and active. So I carved a rock, placed it on there, and you can possibly see the little seedling behind it. I'm going to graft that to it to create a new apex and to give it some more character. So after this full year of letting it grow like that, I'm going to unwrap it, and I might just go ahead and add more seedlings on this side to create a kind of a hill or a mountainscape with 2, maybe 3 trees on it. But at this point, my main deal is to create an apex where the most vertical deadwood is. And I'm sure you've seen this before with a much longer armature coming out here. I did cut it back, and this thing is growing like gangbusters, and I'm so happy with the progress I'm making in this and getting it to ramify, to get movement in it. And I was even thinking about this last night. If I don't place this whole thing on a large rock and lean it more forward to create a cascade effect, what I'll do is graft in some large pieces, seedlings or something in here to thicken this up toward the base. But anyway, that's just one of my projects. This is another root over rock elm project from a root that I've been working on. I saw a picture of another elm, and I'm designing this after that elm, but the other elm was in a pot, not on a rock, and it was kind of in a leaning scape type situation, not really a cascade. And of course, this cascade, I'm going to be lifting this year to see how the roots are doing after I've let it grow for a while. And part of what I need to do now is probably, depending on what I see in the roots and how I like it, I will take this pot, sit it into some kind of configuration to raise this armature into more of a vertical position, to cause this to be the dominant branch, such as causing it to be the new apex, so that it will thicken up with the energy going to it instead of the apex here. Now this apex is about where I want it as far as thickness goes. I do need it to heal some from the wire scars that I've created. Bad bonsai guy, bad bonsai guy. And so this I want to thicken up a little more. So I'll lean this pot back, secure it into a position where it will become the apex, and this will thicken up over a year, 2, 3 years, and this will not thicken up as fast. Okay, and of course I'll cut and trim on this, which will cause this, which is going to be the apex, to ramify more while this is growing. And again, this little dude, I'm really liking it. I just pulled that pomegranate in the ceramic pot to clean the pot and to get it all nice looking. It's starting to break out now with new leaves, and I'm hoping I will get some flowers and fruit on it this year. I think I had 1 or 2 flowers on it last year, but again, I did this from an air layer, and the original tree is across the way on the bench. And this pot, I pulled it out this morning to expose the roots and to clean up the pot and to see what it looks like. This is a root over rock, little trident seedling. Oh yeah, and you see my table here? What a mess, huh? I'm so proud of that. Why? Because I've been working, and again the weather came in and I ran. I got no problem with leaving a mess as long as I'm getting some work done and I'm making progress around the joint. Making a mess is not a problem. And I'm sure, I think, well, you haven't really seen this in because I haven't really spliced together the video that I've got with this in it, how I created this, and some other things that I'd been working on. So I don't know which one will come out first, but guess what? It doesn't matter. You can always rewind, replay, and look it over again. And this is a grove that I'm getting ready to make. I've got at least 3 trees that I'm considering putting on this. How many I put on that, I'm not sure. And I was going to make an elm root over, kind of elm grove video showing you how I create this. And I think in another video I did talk about it a little bit, but I'll do that at some other time. This is coming along really well, and water is the key. And I just trimmed this back in the upper regions a whole lot, and you can see they're starting to sprout out pretty good right now. Okay, and I'll show you another elm group. Yeah, this, I think I made this at the beginning of 2020. That rock right there is just a piece of concrete slab that was laying around here. I picked it up, grabbed a few seedlings and cuttings that I had, and just put them on there and put a bunch of soil on it. And I think I mentioned before, I've got this tub here with reclaimed bonsai soil. I leave it here, the soil washes off onto the ground. I'll either scoop some of this up, put it back on there, I'll just take that, and the roots themselves do the work. Okay, once the roots are mass together, I can do some fine movement, kind of replace or reposition them and do some wiring and trimming as I need. So sometimes here in 2021 I may put some wire on some of these, depending on how solid the root is. Again, this is just about a year old, so I may not be able to do that yet. And another thing, if I choose to sell this, I just take the whole root mass off of this rock, put it on a piece of cardboard, and ship it off to wherever, to Timbuktu or whatever. That's a pomegranate that I just pulled out of a pot and set in this pot. I got the roots splayed like I wanted to. You can see I pulled down the 2 branches there, so I'm making this kind of a clump style pomegranate, and it's coming along pretty nice. Now the pomegranate I showed you in the ceramic pot, this is the parent from it, and that's where I carved out or took off that air layer. And you can see, well, you might be able to see here that this is starting to break out also, and it's about 40 degrees, 39, 40 degrees right now. This I just dug up this year also, or late in 2020. It's another pomegranate. By the way, that pomegranate, I actually bought it from a nursery that closed down originally, and this is one of the suckers that came up on the side of the original plant, and this is the original plant right here. That was the main trunk that came up and outstripped it in growth, so I took that because I wasn't interested in fruit or flowers even. I just wanted a nice large trunk. So once that became large enough, then I air layered this piece off and took it off, air layered the top out of that, and came up with that other piece. And some of these other pieces that you see around here are all from that one tree right there. When I make cuttings, I stick them right into the ground, like right along here, and you can see the pomegranate right there. Here's another right here, and the original tree grew right where you can see that red lid, right in that area where the new pieces are growing. So I'll just take cuttings, stick them in the ground, and whatever grows, it grows, and if it doesn't, no problem. You know, I'll get 2, 3, 4 pieces and I'm happy, you know, even though I might have 10, 20, or 30 pieces. So anyway, these are little projects that I'm working on. Let me show you more. I'm thinking about a configuration where I take this and put it on the side of a rock. I fully wired that trident maple on the, and it's been on the rock probably 4 years now, but I fully wired it last month, and even it's starting to push buds and leaves and such. And that was just a little cutting and a piece of rock I found. I'll just work with it. Some of my dug trees from a few weeks ago, so that's going to be a tall tree. I don't have a clue of what it's going to look like, and quite frankly, I'll be as surprised as anyone else looking at it, however it turns out. Okay, now this is one of the projects that I've just started. Carved rock with several tridents in it, and more tridents on the rocks, some on the rocks over there and some are not, but these are recently dug trees that I'm working on. And This trident here is probably right at 4 feet tall. Have no clue of why I left it that tall, but I don't have one that tall, so we'll see. Not to mention, if I let it grow like that 10, 15, 20, 30 years, who knows. This is a table of just little quick elms that I had been working on, and again, I was going to make a video and show all of this and how I'm working this. There's a grove of elms, and they're just held together by and in place by those rocks. They're just in the flower pot drain pan. That's old soup bowl, cereal bowl, and I've attached the elm to the rock. This one is a root over rock also elm in a broken ceramic clay pot, and you see how I've got it angled there, and the screen is over top of the soil to keep it from washing out. Some little trident or elm seedlings, root over rock, initial styling, and another piece of broken clay pot. That's the upper portion of it, and I took several elm pieces, put them in that pot, and you can see it's under the table, somewhat exposed to the environment, but not where the soil can be washed away immediately. And when I need to water it, I fill up the pan underneath it just enough so that the soil and the water comes in contact and the humidity stays up. The water splashes off of the table, splashes onto that. The water in the pan, you know, waters it well. And again, some root over rock creations that I just made, twisties and turns, nothing special. Whether they stay this long, who knows? It depends on how the plant comes out. And there's a sarissa on a rock that I'm working on, but my fingers are starting to freeze, so this video is almost ended, folks. This is special. Now, these I've been working on for a while, okay? And so right now, this is the first raising of these plants. I've had them in this root over rock configuration pretty much all of 2020, but I've been growing the these are root cuttings, by the way, this one and that, okay, but I've been growing them for several years in the ground, in pots by themselves, unstyled, unkept, just to let grow. And once I put them on this rock, they were covered up, put it deep in the pot, and now I've raised them to expose some of the roots, the first part of the roots now, and I wired them to give some kind of movement to the design. Okay? Oh yeah, I'm feeling the burn. And this one, you can see the roots wrapped around that. Okay, and when I thaw out or it warms up in the area, I may come back and wrap this some more with wire or even my black tape, my famous black tape, to make sure these stay pretty close. You can see the tape there securing the wire. And again, I just wired this and made this into these configurations. This is a root over rock that I created. I grew this in the ground, and this is really impressive in my book. That is really grown around that rock and it's clasping the rock, and all I used was cotton string. You can see some of the string right here in the ground. That's I think it was a 3-strand piece of cotton string, kind of like your kitchen binding string, but it's cotton. I used to fly kites with it, so I've had the stuff around, and you can see some more of the string right there. And what I did was uncoil the 3 strands of string, wrapped it around the then small tender roots, placed this in the ground even above the rock, so that all of it would be underground. And I marked it so I wouldn't forget that it was a root over rock configuration. And so that's coming out nicely. So now I'm having to decide if I want to keep all of this upper trunk here and develop it from all of these new buds that are starting to sprout out, or cut it down lower and then bring these in more also. But anyway, the initial thing here is to get movement in these branches across here and then go from that point. And these are some of my well, this one I'm not too thrilled with, but it's a good effort. And of course, it's root over rock, elm, and when it comes out of the pot, the actual configuration will change, or the angle will change. So, but it's a good start. This is root over rock also, but this one is kind of different. The rock is flat, kind of like a plateau, and I'm actually air layering this out. I've never tried to air layer this early in the year, knowing that I would have freezing cold weather, but I didn't expect it to get this cold, mama. So anyway, I've got around the exposed area, I've got a ring of sphagnum moss, and then I filled it in with the soil, and the sphagnum moss is going to hold the moisture, and I don't see any dieback or any weeping or wilting. But when I looked at this, it's like, this is nice. I could have made a nice cascade out of this, but I chose to do something different because I have lots of cascades in development right now. So I try not to be too repetitive in my creations. And here we go. This one is, I'm hoping to be the bad mama jamma, the big poobah of all of my elms, but it's really going to take a while, and I just put this together. Okay, so this is of course a root cutting that I've taken several years back and grown right along with these over here that I showed you at the same time. And I've grown it in a pot, and I just took it out of its individual pot, which was about the size of one of these, placed it on this rock, and I guarantee you the roots in the rock is almost as deep as this pot is. Okay, and so this is my initial styling in this configuration. I have, you can see right here, I've had wire on here before to put movement in the original branches that came off of this root right here. Okay, that's where the root originates, all of its branches. And now this is my apex coming up here and back over the rock. But these roots, they extend all the way down, all the way around. I mean, for me, I am happy about these little groups right here, and the ones I showed you a little earlier. My one little Hokkaido, I don't know. I know I had 2 of them around here, and whether I did a stupid thing and just whacked it down when it was just a little bitty thing, I can't find the next one. So Too bad, so sad. Things happen. But anyway, this is my little growing area for my elms. And again, my next project that I'm thinking about is this. It's going to be a twin trunk trident maple. Nice curves and movement in it. And this elm right over here, you can see that huge trunk right there. So I'll have to dig it and see what the true angle is, because right behind it, the vertical right there on the right of my finger, the vertical comes straight out at the base of that. So that big huge trunk comes over to the left and straight down, and then that vertical branch comes out right on top of it. So I have to dig that up to really see what I want to do as far as working with it. And I've got a few nice trunks left here on my tridents. If I can get through this, you can see that now. Yeah, so yeah, I'll have to figure out from where the roots are, and I'll take my Sawzall with a 9 or 12 inch blade on it and cut down in this. I can't do too much more digging. Nope, I'm not pregnant, but I'm not 20 years old anymore either. And this right here, I had this is another elm, and it's a root over rock. I'm creating a cascade. I actually had a longer piece out here, and it's like, you know what, let me do a shorter one and start from almost nothing. So that's the idea with this one. And I took the pieces and stuck them somewhere to root. And speaking of rooting, this is a rooting bin. Elms, Japanese maples, and little trumpet vines. So anyway, yeah, these are root over rock sarissas, and I took them out of my group that I'm growing and just uncovered them. Did nothing else with them yet, and so I'm letting the weather and the elements expose the roots over time. You can see that group over there. Some of those are still root over rock, some are group, and most of them are just individual plants. So I took this bunch out of that to expose them so that I can start developing them. They're hardening off and maturing. These are the Japanese maples that we started from seeds, and I brought them outside to harden off. I got them here covered up like this to keep the squirrels out. Okay, and these two trays were started much later than that tray, and they're just as viable as that. So anyway, whew, it is cold. It is cold. And in the future, these are some Japanese black pine here. I'll be putting those on rocks eventually. And crab apple. Oh, crabby. I'm getting kind of crabby myself here with this cold. But anyway, those are some of the projects that I'm working on. And like I said, these elms, boy, I just love them. I love them. And I even do small things like this. I just pick that rock up, pull the sarissa up out of the ground, and put some wire on it, and it's like, wow, okay, it's almost like I know what I'm doing. So that's it. Thank you. This I call donut and hole. That is to be positioned on that side of the planting. But anyway, I carved out that hole, and that's the carved out part. Inside I trimmed a channel, put a sarissa in it. It could have been any plant. Put a little wire on it. I'm not done with it yet. Put a little moss on it. Took this one and put it on a tile, put the moss on there, and basically right now it's there just to protect and hold the roots in place. And you can see I've got string tied around here to hold the moss in place, and the roots are growing all through here, not attached yet to the rock. And I've done some initial wiring on this, but I call this my donut and hole bonsai affair, more like a pinjing. And got the little rock affair in there. So this isn't done yet. Like I said, the weather's come in, and it's giving me grief. Yep, a while back I planted trident seeds out here, and you can see seedlings popping up that have popped up all over the place across the way there. Right there's a clump all through here, and that's about 20 feet, and I've got them actually in rows. So the seeds are doing pretty well. I came in here and took some of my elm trees and planted them out. I've actually laid out ground cover in here because the weeds are really beating me up. And you've seen that Naruto before, my little A-frame. And I'm getting thoughts and ideas of what I want to do with that. So I'm still working on that. And I've come in here and cleaned out a lot of the elms. Well, actually, I did take a nice elm out of there, and Chinese elm. But I put down a landscape fabric. I had crepe myrtles lined up all through here to the two you see on that end, and this juniper bay leaf, I think I got 4 of those in there, pomegranate, rose bushes. This is a miniature red rose, which I love. That good for hanging baskets. The root itself is good for a bonsai. And you can see the Japanese maples there, and more pomegranate. But anyway, like I said, the weeds were just beating me up, and so I had to do something drastic. And so I came in here, dug out all of the crepe myrtles I had in here, except for the 2 on that end, which I'll get to shortly. And I've actually listed those online for sale. I found this little, I guess you can say, crate carrier And so this is going to be my newest little project. I got 9 slots in there, and these are good 9-10 inch pots, all on that. This will be a workstation, and it will be a growing area. So I'll put 9 trees in here, or a clump of trees in one, and grow some of my bonsai on it right here in the open. Little workbench, table. Neighbors threw away some chairs and benches, so I can use those as workstation, and I'm good. And I've been trying to dig this tree up, cut it back and dig it up for weeks now, but the weather and other things have not been on my side. So I'm going to get to that eventually, because I really like the way this trunk looks, and I don't really want it to get much larger than this. So that's about the size of that. I was moving stuff around. As a matter of fact, when I was putting out that ground cover for over there, I pulled and pulled, and boom, I heard something fall over, and it was this Procumbens nana. It broke the top out of it, so I got the top of that in a pot. Hopefully it will root, because it'll make a nice little plant on its own. So what I'm going to do is take a nice rock and make a cascade with this off the side of a rock. So hey, you use what you got to make what you want. And more seeds. These are the 2020 collected Trident maple seeds. Lots of seedlings here. Across the way, I see new ones coming up. I see some have their first set of true leaves. Seedlings right here coming up. So we're doing pretty good. And that'll keep me busy once they're all up. We have more seedlings here. These are in what I call the back 40, way out back from where we were just showing you seeds and such. But these came up like gangbusters all through here. And this is the last batch that I planted. They don't have true leaves on them yet, but they've sprouted up and they're standing really tall. This bed is one of the first ones I planted. And this section right here, hardly anything in there, believe it or not. And I use what I call my clean seeds. These were basically just clean, dry, stored seeds. Nothing done to them special. But look at this bunch right here, all filled out. I mean, this is going like gangbusters. Now, what's the difference? These, I added the lactobacillus to the batch of seeds, and these are sprouted out magnificently, whereas these were not treated with the lactobacillus. So they take a little bit longer to sprout out. They're going to come up, but it's taking longer for them to germinate. Okay, what am I talking about? Well, the lactobacillus helps break down the outer shell of the seeds, and so they take in moisture a lot better, and I assume they take in the heat also to help the seeds to sprout and germinate. In other words, it breaks the cold dormancy state, and then the seeds begin to germinate a lot faster. These are some of my Chinese elm. This is actually off of my first elm tree that I bought as a bonsai from one of the big retailers, bonsai retailers. So I've got it actually listed. You can see that stick going across there because I've got some other pieces in here that are just trees that I gained from different ways, different means over the years. But that one I keep separate, keep it tagged and marked. And that one, you know, was sold to me as quote unquote Elmus parviflora, Chinese elm. And so if I'm going to say anything, that's what I say then. But the other ones, I'll just call them Chinese elm. Be it Drake elm or Catlin elm, they're Chinese elms. I have people who say, I want the Chinese elm. Okay, this is Chinese elm. No, that's not the Chinese elm. I want the Chinese elm. They're all Chinese elms. Catlin elm, Drake elms, they're just cultivars of the Chinese elm. You know? So, tomatoes, pork and beans and weenies, whatever you got. But anyway, this is a few of my recent air layers that I pulled down and potted up just to get back here to stabilize. These are pretty large roots or trunks, so they've got a long way to go before I do anything with them. Another air layer here that I stuck straight into the ground, and I've taken off a few air layers and put them into the ground. That was actually I air layered the tops out of that where you can see the stumps, and I've left this out here to catch the sun and to rebound. So it'll be there growing for the next few seasons until it does well, and then I'll go back in and start carving and trimming on dead wood. But I don't want to mess with it now because I did just pot that up recently. And this is a maple, Japanese maple on a rock. I think I took that off of air layer and stuck it on this thing back in June, July, August sometime, and I was hoping I didn't kill it, so I put it back here, semi-shade, lots of moisture, humidity, and to this point it's still hanging in there, but we'll see. And again, I do that on purpose, knowing that I'm out of sync with the season, but if I can push something, I'm going to push it because my time is limited, and a lot of this is just to gain experience and to see what is possible. Trident maple, root over rock. This is another one that came out like great, grew like gangbusters. Someone gave me some painted rocks that they didn't want, and oops, and so I stuck it on this blue rock, and I'll tell you what, it clasped around that rock really well. And now it's just a matter of letting it grow back and see what happens. This you've seen in one of my videos when I was talking about my cuttings, you know, 1.5 to 2 inches or whatever, large cuttings, and how to cut the, you see that angle right there? This is what I was saying when I said it doesn't matter to me what the angle of the cutting is, okay, for the most part, because I'll find a way, I'll find something to make this thing work with, okay. And you can see here, that's a pretty substantial root that's growing from that right now, and you can see I've somewhat wired this. Once the new shoots come out, I can reduce some of the heavier branches up top here and use the new side shoots and whatnot to work things out. some dug trees, smaller trees that I'll just be growing over time. But anyway, root over rock for a taller crown area or trunk area. The power of a tree, the wisdom of a tree. See how that tree is bent around that log? That log is actually just leaning on it, but that tree is saying, I'm not going to give. Okay, so you can see it, and that was only there a year at this point. It came from these pear trees right here. The stump in the middle there was a sucker or a seed tree that grew up, and I finally had to dispatch that little fella, and that's part of the trunk. But why did I bring that up? Because you may need to bend a tree, so you just go cut down your pear tree and lean a stump against it, and then it'll bend your bonsai for you. No, trees are very flexible. You've seen broken and smashed sidewalks, tree roots. This little doofer right here is just a tree I dug up somewhere a while back. One of what we call Florida pine, scrub pine, sand pine. And it's starting to develop into something pretty good. That's another little project. That grew up in a pot of a tree that I had for a bonsai. So I took that pine tree there and let it grow for a few years, and I just now put it on this rock a few weeks ago, and it's holding its own. And one last thing, and then I'll have to go. That little pine right there is a tree that I actually dug up at the end of the street, planted it in the front yard for a while, and I dug it up in 2020, put it in a pot to let it grow, and I just wired it, put some movement in it. And what I'm going to do is bend it that way. So I'll secure the bottom, I'll secure the top, and I'll take a piece of wood, put it in the middle and push it that way. The top will bend that way, the bottom will bend that way, or the middle will bend that way. And I just want a bit of movement in it, and so that's how I'm going to do that. But again, lots of projects, lots of fun. It's all about the bonsai. Alrighty. Oh, I can't go yet. I've got these peach trees right here that I bought years ago from a place in Georgia, and they stink. I haven't gotten the fruit off of them yet. They'll flower a little bit, they'll do this or that. So what I've done is I went to the big box store, bought a peach tree, and I'll be grafting on these in a little bit. So we'll see how that works. Alrighty, daddy. Thanks. See you later.